Check, check.
Oh, look at that.
Thank you for coming, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Kosinsky.
Thank you so much for coming out and seeing it in the theater. Really, really appreciate it.
Wow. Okay, I got to get my volume ready. I got to decipher first. So we're all good on filming? Perfect. Joe was telling me earlier about your helmet. The Sunny Hayes helmet, the popcorn bucket.
Yeah, if you haven't got one of these things are great.
Yeah, of course we're not filming this. We have no camera on it, but it's a cool popcorn helmet. I'm going to go like this. Anyway, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's great to see you.
Nice to see you. So, what is it like? This is one of my favorite films of the year. You did such an amazing job. Wait, did I lose it? Okay, there we go. So, when did you realize? Because you've been working on this for forever. When did you realize? Oh wait, it really works, and people are loving it.
I don't know if there's a moment. A movie like this, we do test these movies. It's well known. We do these test screenings, and the movie's usually in a very unfinished form when you do that. And in the case of this movie, I finished shooting this in December in Abu Dhabi, and I had to test it because of our schedule when we were coming out. I had to test the movie like 4 weeks after we finished filming, which is a very, very short amount of time. And so we really threw the last 15 minutes of the movie together very quickly, which is obviously a critical part of the story. But despite kind of putting it together quickly, we put it up in front of an audience very close to here. I think it was in Torrance. And the movie just played great, even in unfinished form. And we got some great feedback, and I was able to even make it, dial some things in. But just based on that first screening, I had a sense that the movie was playing really well. But you never really know until the movie comes out. It's always a really nerve-wracking time. And here we are, 7 or 8 weeks out, and it's still in theaters. It's still playing. It's great. I love it. And just to see a full theater like this with you guys coming out is, nothing makes me happier. So thank you again for coming.
So I read, and obviously the internet can sometimes be wrong, but I read that there's talk of like the sequel to this could be the Days of Thunder sequel as well. Like, how is that true? Is that just all BS?
Here's what happened. A reporter asked me a question, said, if you could make a movie with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, what would that movie be? And I just kind of threw out this idea of Sonny Hayes comes back to the world of F1 and bumps into his old rival, Cole Trickle, who raced NASCAR in the 90s, and they cross paths again, and I just thought that would be a really great story, but probably impossible to make. Talk about Mission Impossible. That would be a tricky film to pull off.
I was going to say Paramount, Apple, Warner Brothers. It might be
just the amount of lawyers and yeah, it would be years. But yeah, in terms of like dreaming how to put those two in a movie together, I would love to figure it out because they're both icons and amazing to work with. I've been very lucky to get to make movies with both of them.
I was going to say you're friends with both of them. It's not like.
Yeah, I actually did do a table read for a movie called Go Like Hell, which became Ford versus Ferrari. I was developing that with both of them in it for a while, and I did a script read through at Tom's house with Brad, the three of us together. So that was pretty surreal. And then Tom was very kind to come to the F1 premiere in London, so it was a chance to see the two of them together again. But yeah, that would be amazing if we could figure out a way to get them both in the same film.
Right? I agree. So everyone here tonight or this afternoon just experienced this in ScreenX. So talk a little bit about, because I've never experienced ScreenX like this. It looked really, I was about to curse. It looked really cool. How is this experience, how is ScreenX different, than other theaters?
Well, I was first introduced to ScreenX on Top Gun Maverick, and it was kind of a happy accident because on Top Gun, I had 6 cameras in the cockpit with Tom and the other actors, but I could only use one camera angle at a time when you're watching the film. But what I realized was I had these two cameras on the side that were rolling the entire time we were shooting, and it turned out to be perfect footage for the wings in ScreenX. So if you happen to see Top Gun Maverick in ScreenX, I think you got a really special experience because we had all that footage that we were able to use only in that format. So when it came to F1, again, I felt like it was a perfect marriage of kind of a format and a movie. This being F1, you want to experience the speed and what it feels like to be in one of these cars. So we worked with them again, and I gave them all the extra footage I had because I had 4 cameras in the car rolling all the time. We were able to do the same thing and fill out these wings for certain sections of the film. I just think, we were talking earlier, going to the theater gives you an experience you can't get at home. And this, unless you're a billionaire, this is not an experience you can have at home. To experience this with an audience, the film in a completely different format that's even more immersive, that really gives you that sensation of speed, I think it's great. And obviously you guys will be the judge of that, but I thought it was a really fun way to experience the story.
I'm curious, I believe that the technology is developed in Korea, and there's artists in Korea that work on all this. Can you talk about how do you work with the people who are designing all this, in where and when to deploy the full experience?
Yeah, so what I do is I sit in a theater just like this, but it's really just me and people from ScreenX, and we go through the movie and I identify areas where I think the wings should turn on and where they turn off. And it's not just as simple as, oh, we'll just make the races in the wings, and when they're not racing, it's off. It's actually, there are certain moments in this story where I wanted them to come on, and so we spent a lot of time finding those exact shots, where to turn it on and then where to fade it out. And then they do their work, and then we preview it in a theater. We watch it all the way through. I make some adjustments because I don't always get it right the first time. But yeah, it's a lot of work to take all that extra footage we had and map it out. So it takes months and I think hundreds of, if not thousands of people working on it.
One of the things I think about ScreenX, 4DX, and large screen formats is it's just cool because you can't do that at home. How much do you think that formats like this will be the future of movie going? Because a lot of times I think with a normal theater, you can kind of experience some of those at home, unless it's like a huge spectacle film.
Yeah, I think, we need, it's my job as a director to give you guys a reason to get out of your house, to drive here to the theater, to find parking, to find a babysitter if you have kids. It's a lot of work for some people to go to the movies. And I feel like it's my job to give you an experience that's worth going to all that effort. What I love about ScreenX, 4DX, all the premium formats is they give you an experience you can't have at home, and even better, you get to experience it with a big group of people. And that emotional experience of being in a group and hearing people react around you and hear them gasp or hear them laugh or hear them cry, that's such an important part of movie going. So I love all these premium formats, and I love ScreenX and how they're really pushing the envelope and changing the experience for people.
Jumping into the movie specifically, something that when I was watching it again today, I'm so blown away by the editing in this movie. And I'm not sure how many of you guys realize, every sequence, you're building tension through the cuts. And where and when you decide to show a close-up of the screen in the car, or Brad's face, or whatever it may be. So how challenging was this edit in compared to your other movies? For me, the editing in this is just spectacular.
I mean, I thought Top Gun Maverick would be the most complex movie I'd ever make, and this film took it to the next level. We shot and ended up shooting over 5,000 hours of footage for the 2.5 hours that you just watched, because of the nature of what we were doing. We were capturing this footage at real Grand Prix, which meant I had to have cameras going on every part of the track all the time. You know, I had 4 cameras on each car, both Damson and Brad driving. I had cameras in the Paddock Club shooting Javier. So a lot of cameras, a lot of footage, and you know, telling the story shot by shot. This was probably almost a 2-year process of editing, from start to finish, done by one man, Stephen Marioni, who was the editor on this, obviously with an incredible crew supporting him. But he had to put this together piece by piece, and you know, you don't shoot films in order. You shoot them, you shoot the footage of where you're at that time, and then we had a strike, an actor's strike, in the middle of our shoot, which complicated things even more. 6 days into shooting, the actors went on strike, so I lost Brad, Carrie, Damson, and Javier. But we were shooting in the UK, so the rest of my actors were all equity, which is a UK. So I was able to shoot with them, but I didn't have my 4 main actors. So what I did was I essentially just became a second unit director and shot all the racing pieces I could do without my actors for the next 38 days. So that meant, you know, on a big movie like this, a lot of times as a director, you're not able to shoot every shot. You have to send another unit out to go grab inserts of tires being changed, or, you know, a racing shot of 2 cars, you know, going wheel to wheel. But on this film, because of the strike, I was able to shoot every single shot in this movie myself, which is a rarity for something of this size. But I loved it, and
I have to ask, did it give you a taste of like, oh, I'm screwed on the next one because I'm going to want to micromanage a little bit and do my second unit?
Yeah, definitely. This is the only way I'm making movies. In fact, I'd love if we could do a break, you know, halfway through like we did with this, and you know, take a few months down to tweak the script or edit what you have together and figure out, you know, how you want to maybe modify what you have planned in the future. So it ended up being a great thing for the film, but it was complicated because we ended up shooting it over 2 different Formula One seasons. And for my editor, it was even more complicated because he would have, you know, imagine having these races but only every other shot. It's a very hard way to put a film together, but we persevered and we got it done.
I'm so curious, we started talking about editing, and I want to know, what was your first cut that you had of this movie in terms of like, you're happy with it? Was it like 3 hours? Was it 3.5? Like, where were you in the edit where you're like, this is a pretty good movie. I don't know how we're going to make it shorter.
I think the first preview cut that we showed an audience in January was 2 hours and 37 minutes without credits. And this movie is 2 hours and 27, so it was 10 minutes longer.
So I have to ask, was it just tightening scenes, or did you lose one scene or sequence that you were a little sad to see go?
Yeah, I had to. There was a character that had to that didn't, you know, make it through. So, you know, actually there are 2 or 3 characters who's ultimately didn't make it into the final cut, which is always tough because you know you love every character that you have, and I love those actors, but ultimately didn't make it in, and that happens almost on every film. Let's see, which race was too long? Monza had a whole other section to it that didn't need to be there ultimately.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
is the cut that you had that was 2:37, is it something where like you're thinking about eventually like more like an extended cut online, or is this the ultimate, this is the movie?
No, this is the movie. No, I can't imagine putting, you know, if I watched that 2:37 cut now, I'd be asking myself, what was I thinking? That's obviously way too long. So it's just a process, and it just takes time, and you have to watch it, and you have to show it to people, and you have to make those trims, and it's just, you got to go through that process. It's hard to do, but the first time you put a film up in front of an audience, you instantly see 5 minutes, you know, that you didn't see before. But as soon as, you know, I sit in the seats like with you guys during a preview, and I sit, you know, on the edge and watch everyone's reaction, and you can just tell instantly where, you know, something that needs to come out. You can just feel it in the room. So it's an important part of the process, and it's taken me, what is this? This is my 6th movie. It's taken me 6 movies to kind of figure out how to do it.
One of the things about this film is the cinematography is breathtaking, and Claudio just did such an amazing job. But I want to get specific, and like for people that know F1, every bit of weight matters. And you're sticking cameras on these F1 cars, and you need to capture the footage, but you cannot really add weight to the car. So how did you and Claudio invent technology or work this out to be able to film these sequences?
Well, like you said, the camera system that we used to shoot this movie didn't exist. We had to invent it. And we worked very closely with Sony to develop a new camera system that is an evolution of the cameras that we used in Top Gun Maverick. These are much smaller, much lighter, and were actually built into the race cars themselves. These are custom built race cars from Mercedes that have 15 camera mounts built into them, have special storage space for batteries and recorders and transmitters. So they're literally race cars built for making this movie. And Sony built 20 prototypes of this super tiny IMAX quality camera.
I heard it was called a sensor on a stick.
That's what Claudio calls it. I think its official name was the Carmen. I'm not sure why it was called that, but yeah, it's basically the camera sensor in a box with a very tiny lens on it, and the brains of the camera and the batteries and the recording media are all connected by fiber optic cable and sitting in the bottom of the car in a cavity under the radiators.
Is that where it's actually capturing footage, or is it being beamed out?
No, it's being captured on the car, and then the transmitter beams a signal to Claudio and I. We're in a mission control with all the monitors monitoring 8 cameras simultaneously, and then we also had these knobs that we could turn that would allow us to pan the cameras left and right. So when you see the camera panning, that's actually us panning it from mission control while we're watching the footage live. So that was all invented and engineered and built just to shoot this film.
I read that the technology you invented for this, F1 might be using in their actual races in the future.
Yeah, I noticed, I watched a race 2 weekends ago, and they already switched their lenses to a much wider angle like the movie. So I don't know if that was our influence, but I noticed they're already starting to change their angles to capture that sense of speed. So I think the moving camera is something they're really interested in, but theirs is gonna have to be much smaller than ours. Even though ours was small, it was still the size of a phone, and that's something that was right in front of Brad's face while he was driving. You can't do that in real F1s. They're gonna have to come up with something much tinier.
Speaking of Brad driving, a lot of people are gonna, maybe they don't know that it was really Brad and I want to pronounce it right, Damson, who did the driving. And so talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people can't actually drive 180 or 200 miles an hour. When did you know that these guys could actually do it?
Well, I did 2 things. The first thing I did here in LA is when I wanted Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, who's also producer on the movie, to meet Brad for the first time. And I said, well, why don't we meet at the track and just spend the day driving around together? So I think Brad thought it was just a chance to meet Lewis, but what my secret agenda was to see if Brad could actually drive and have Lewis evaluate him. So we went to a racetrack here in Carson, and
I want to pause. When you do something like that, are you shutting it down, or can regular people also see this?
No, the whole track was shut down. It was a Sunday, and it was private.
Sure, just wondering.
A private racetrack. A special thanks to Porsche for letting us use the Porsche Experience Center. So I went. Lewis drove me around. I drove Lewis around, and then Brad got in the car with Lewis, and Lewis got to watch Brad drive, and then Brad got to watch Lewis drive, and Lewis could see immediately that Brad had a feel for racing, and Brad drives motorcycles, so I think that's where he kind of got that feel for grip and racing line and all that, and Lewis could just see he had natural talent right from the start, and it was something that could be developed to get him to the level to drive these cars. So Brad got the thumbs up from Lewis, which, if you get it from Lewis, that means a lot. And then Damson, I knew I wanted him to play the role just as an actor because he's a phenomenal actor, and I knew that from his audition. But we also sent him to a track in outside of London and had him do a day of evaluation. And the report came back to me that he was green in that he didn't have a lot of experience, not as much as Brad did, but that he was great at listening and had the fundamentals, so could be taught. So the two of them then went into an intense 3-month race training program, taking them from sports cars up to these cars, which are Formula 2 cars, capable of going 200 miles an hour, and got into physical shape, which you need to be, because this is extremely grueling to drive these things. It beats your body up in a way you can't even imagine. And they drove themselves in the film. And I think you can, my thought was you'd feel the difference when you see them driving. When you see the intensity on their face, you see them sweating, you see their eyes darting around, that's because they're really driving and playing their roles at the same time.
The thing that's crazy is that they are not only driving, but F1 drivers are just focused on the drive. They need to be focused on dialogue and acting with their eyes while still driving. So it's pretty nuts, their performances.
It's really intense. It's a lot. They were completely wiped out at the end of the day. Like you said, they had me in their ear. I'm watching. I'm telling them, giving them notes as they're driving around the track. And remember, we were doing this during real Grand Prix weekend, so there was 150,000 people in the stands as well. So they were just desperate not to wipe out in front of everyone.
Sure.
I think what they were able to accomplish and pull off in this is pretty astonishing.
What did you learn about F1 that you didn't know, that maybe surprised you? You know what I mean?
I think what surprised me and what F1 was surprised about us is how similar their life is kind of to being on the film crew, because they're this little universe of 10 teams that travel around the world every weekend and put on one of these races, but it's the same group of people going around the world and working, and it's very much like a giant version of a film crew. So there was a lot of parallels, and we learned a lot from them, and I think they learned a lot from us as we were embedded with each other for 2 years. So it ended up being a really great marriage of two different disciplines, and it was an amazing experience, and I'm really indebted to F1 for allowing us into their world, because it's a very closed bubble. It's very hard to penetrate. And they let us in and trusted us, and we were able to, do something that couldn't have been done any other way.
Well, how scared were you at that first screening where you're showing it to the F1 racers and key F1 people?
I was terrified. It was in Monaco in May, and it was the 20 drivers, the team principals, and then me sitting next to the Prince of Monaco.
I just wonder, the Prince of Monaco. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
So it was very intense because you're showing it, to them. And I had the experience of doing the same thing in Top Gun, showing that movie to the Navy in San Diego the night of our premiere.
Which went better? Sorry,
actually, I think they both went. It was very similar. I think I was more nervous for F1 because it was such a small group of people. It's only 20 drivers, whereas the Navy one, it was like a giant. Oops, sorry, that was my phone. It was a giant auditorium filled with 1,000 sailors that were whooping and cheering. The F1 drivers were a little more cool, but it was fun because I was sitting behind Charles Leclerc, who drives for Ferrari, and I knew they were locked in because there's a part of the film at the end where Charles gets passed by Brad and Danson's characters. And when that happened, Charles threw his hands in the air. He was so annoyed that he got passed. And I was like, all right, well, he's locked in.
What would have happened if Brad and Damson couldn't have driven?
That's a good question. I never thought about that. I was just, I was determined for them to drive, and they were determined. So failure was not an option. We were gonna do it. I mean, if we had known early in the process that they couldn't have driven, I would think we would maybe find someone else. But they both could, and they were great.
Which shot or sequence in the film ended up being the real ballbuster? The one that was just so hard to pull off?
Believe it or not, it was Las Vegas. That's a track that only exists for a few nights out of the entire year, so Brad and Damson had no chance to drive it before the shoot. They only drove it on a simulator. And then we shot that scene at 11 o'clock at night. It was 45 degrees out, which is very cold for these cars. They don't operate in those temperatures. And the track itself is very dangerous because it's very fast and has walls on both sides. It was our only street course. So, and I had one 15-minute window to shoot that scene. So to pull all that off and put the actors in that sort of dangerous situation and it be an important scene that I only had one shot at doing or else the movie wasn't gonna finish, that was the most intense.
But that's something I want to touch on, which a lot of people don't realize, and I wrote it down, like there is something called, talk about the white space in the F1 schedule, which meant you had 10 minutes to film your scenes that day. It was like live theater. You know?
Yeah, so we would only get these little windows between practice, qualifying, and all the other stuff that the track was needed for. So our windows for shooting was very, very small. So rather than having hours or all day to shoot a scene like you would on any other movie, we sometimes only had 10 minutes. So it was like preparing for a live show, but again, with Vegas, if I didn't get the scene that night, that whole track was being torn down and wouldn't be put up again until this November. So the stakes couldn't really have been higher for me, and yeah, I'm just thankful we pulled it off and no one got hurt.
You got to see what's called the back of the house of all of the different racing teams. Where you got to see each garage, so you could recreate a garage for Apex.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what that was like, because from what I understand, nobody gets to get in that garage unless you're part of the team.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first level of top secret. What I'm really proud of and what I got to put in the movie is the scenes where Brad and Damson are training in the simulator, which is that, it's like a very, very expensive video game. That is probably the most secret place of any team, and Mercedes, after, I asked Toto basically for a year.
You should say who Toto is.
Toto Wolff is the team principal of Mercedes. After bugging him for a year, he finally allowed us to shoot those scenes in the Mercedes simulator, which is like a $6 million machine that they built custom. And I had very, very specific parameters of what angles I could shoot, because there's some really proprietary hardware and things happening on the ground. But it was very similar to what I had on Top Gun. There were some things I saw on Top Gun that I had to erase off my camera later.
Is that true?
Yeah. I went to a place where I took some pictures and then someone took my camera and erased everything on it. Gave it back to me.
Was it like top secret tech or something?
Yeah, no comment.
How did the story change? Because you came up with the story, and how did the story change from when you first came up with it to what actually ended up on screen?
The bones of the story, I think, and the themes and the relationships are there, but Aaron Kruger, our screenwriter, took that idea and fleshed it out into a screenplay, which is what a screenwriter does and is a very amazing gift that I don't have, that screenwriters have. And Aaron did an amazing job, and then taking all the feedback from Brad and Jerry and everyone who was working on the movie, and so it evolved over, it took about a year from the pitch to the screenplay that became the movie.
The movie's made like $580 million already, and it's going to be back in theaters. This is the biggest hit of Brad Pitt's career. I don't know if it's the biggest of yours. I don't know.
There's a little.
Oh, Top Gun. What am I saying? Yeah, I forgot it made like $7 billion. My bad. But I'm just curious, like, how happy is Apple? Because Apple has never really done this before, and the other movies they've released have not had this kind of success.
I think Apple's thrilled, and they were an incredible partner in this movie. They, took a risk on a original film. This is not a sequel. This is not a reboot. This is an original story, a new character, and Apple took that risk, so I'm so eternally grateful for that. They were great partners on it. They were a technology partner. They developed a new camera that we were able to put in the real F1 cars. So there's like 31 shots from real F1 races shot with an Apple iPhone camera that was embedded in the pod above the real drivers that are in this movie. So yeah. So
exactly.
So they were incredible, and I have another project I'm developing with them, and I hope this gives them the confidence to do more films like this, because I think it'd be great to have another studio making theatrical films.
Speaking of next projects, you must be in a very unique position. You are in a very unique position where I'm sure whatever you want to do next, someone will want to make it with you. So what is it like being in that position after, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to get to where you are at. It's very rare. And so what are you thinking about for next things?
I've got three, you always have to have multiple things going. You can't just have one. So I've got 3 projects I'm working on right now, all in the script stage, which is really fun because it's completely different from, finishing the movie and selling it. Now I go back to script. So I've got 3 scripts, and whichever one, comes to fruition first will be the one I make next, but I'm excited about all of them.
I'm gonna get specific now. One of them is a UAP project with Apple and Jerry Bruckheimer, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
And one of them is Miami Vice, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I don't know if I know what the third one is. Do I know? Have you announced what the third one is?
Yeah, I think it's out there. It's a sequel to one of the other movies we did.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, what am I saying? Again, I forgot the whole Top Gun, making a lot of money. Yeah, that's on me. So the UAP project, what is it about that story and script that says, I want to work on this?
Well, it's a fascinating topic, and what excites me about it is Jerry brought me into it. We are working with 2 people that are at the very center of the topic. If anyone who follows these UAPs, that the Tic Tac videos, maybe you saw those. It's a whole world of intrigue and interesting things that can't be explained, and we're working with 2 people that are at the very, very center of it. So it's not science fiction. It's a real story, and we're telling the story of these 2 guys who are in the middle of it. So to me, that's a fascinating topic. It's one of the things. The deeper you go in, it kind of starts to blow your mind. So.
I saw the documentary Age of Disclosure at Sundance, which isn't out yet. Have you seen that?
I have not seen it. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it deals with
that world.
Yeah, it deals with the stuff that you're working on. It's fascinating. I'll just say it like that. Miami Vice. When I heard that you were attached or working on Miami Vice, I was like, wait, what? What is it about that is calling your name?
So when every other person who's my age, in 1985, when they were all looking at comic books or playing with Star Wars figures or Transformers toys, I was watching Miami Vice. So for me, that television show is a very important part of me growing up, and introduced me to kind of the work of Michael Mann.
Sure.
And I have a soft spot for that era, having grown up in it. I did not grow up in Miami, but I'm very excited about that. And I don't want to say too much about it, but yeah, we're working on it.
No, it's just so not what I expected. Now,
why would you say that?
Because there's.
I made Tron Legacy.
Right, speaking of Tron Legacy, I do have some questions. Do you feel like, because I think that when Tron Legacy came out, it did okay, blah, 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 but I feel like in recent years it's really grown, the legacy of that film. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like there's more love for it now?
I just signed a bunch of Tron Legacy posters out in the back. I got out of my car and there were people waiting with Tron Legacy posters for me to sign. So that seems to be the one that, I signed Top Gun posters, and obviously F1 posters, but Tron Legacy seems to be the other one that has a.
It's cool.
It's had a good life. It's now, what is it, 15 years? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's a very important film to me. It was my first movie. It was my film school, and I didn't know what I was doing, and that's what was great about it. Is that we were just making it up, me and Daft Punk and the crew. So it was great.
Ladies and gentlemen, a few quick things. Number one, Joe and I have to go to the other theater to do another Q&A, like immediately. We're being given the wrap-up signal. So I just want to say that if everyone could sort of stay seated, because we really have to go to the other theater. But I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out tonight. But ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Kosinsky, thank you for coming in. Thank you. Thank you so much.